Heyo, welcome everyone to Stay in the Scene by Indie Arcade Wave. I'm Joe, your host, and here on In the Scene, we dive into what's happening in the arcade space, from new indie arcade developers, arcade owners, and operators, and just news in the space in general. Now, before we jump in, I just wanted to say a couple things. We've got the new shirts from Galactic Battleground. I'll throw those up on the screen, as well as the cabinets. We got our 4-player Konami and our 4-player tabletop. I'll throw those up right now. I'm ready to jump into this episode. There's an arcade that I've been checking out for a while now. They're not close to me. I really wish I could go visit, but I've got the owners with me. So we're going to dive into High Scores Arcade. They've got 2 locations currently in California. They've got some really cool stuff there that makes their arcade stand out from others, like their custom Nintendo cabinets. They've got their own wine, a family wine. And they just opened up a second location. So let's dive in. We've got the owners, Meg and Shawn, with us today. How are you guys doing?
Peace.
Hey,
What's
how you
happening?
doing?
I'm
Meg.
I'm Shawn.
Nice to meet you guys finally. Obviously, we've been talking for a long time. I know Meg and I have definitely been texting. Shawn, you've been in there too. I don't know exactly who I'm texting every time, but we've been chatting for a while, and I'm really excited to hear about your experience. We spoke a little bit before, and that just made me even more curious. So let's just jump into intros. Like, let us know who you guys are and why you wanted to open an arcade.
You want to start?
Who are we? Shawn and I have, we've been, as people, we've been a couple for, 20 something years. And somewhere in that early space of our relationship, Shawn brought a Donkey Kong home to our apartment. And while I was away at work, and that was what started the ball rolling way back when. We had two, I had a corporate job and he was teaching. And initially we just started collecting because it was fun. It was our passion. We lined the walls of our apartment with the games eventually. And, really built a modest collection, anything that a 1-bedroom apartment could hold. We ran out of room, and we started to kind of conceptualize High Scores back when we lived in New Jersey. We saw an opportunity to, we were house hunting. We were looking at places that had big basements, accessible basements, easy stairs, big storage units. So the games really started to shape what we were going to do next with our lives. So we bought a building that had a commercial storefront on the first floor, and we lived.
I think you're going too. Sorry, you're going too fast.
It. Okay,
you're going too fast. Right? So I'm a rapper from New Jersey. Right?
Okay.
I rap
Let's start there.
I rap my whole life. Right. I get some independent albums out. I find myself teaching in the inner city. My wife's got a corporate job, and our life is tough, man. Like, I got to wake up super early in the morning. I'm still kind of a partier, so I like to have a couple drinks. I'm waking up at 5:36, going this difficult job. And then, you get this little window of time open every once in a while for holiday breaks and stuff for teachers. Meg's still got to work, but I can kind of stay home on the internet. And this is early 2000s, man. And we saw a copy of King of Kong, right? That, it wasn't out yet. It was like 2005 or 6. As soon as they wrapped it, we had a copy of it somehow, some illegal copy of it, some bootleg pirated copy. And I saw all these guys at the time. I'm in my early 30s. And I saw these guys, man, in their like early 40s, mid 40s. And I'm sitting there thinking, what the hell am I going to do, man? Like, I can only listen to Big Daddy Kane and Slick Rick so many times and live in the past, the nostalgia, this hip hop stuff. I got to find a new place to live in the past. And man, when I saw those dudes like 10, 15 years older than us, like just charged up about playing these old ass games, I was good back in the day. So I just said, behind Meg's back, buy this Donkey Kong on eBay. Ship it from Florida, right? And so one day, me and my buddy drive out there, and Meg's a little iffy about this at the time. She likes video games too. We play modern stuff, but we never had an arcade cabinet in the house. So I just, through all trickery and slyness, slide this thing into our lives, right? And then we start having fun together. And then it starts to become a Meg and Shawn thing,
it was a 1-bedroom apartment.
Yeah, we start going to these auctions, and like she sees Centipede, and then all the games are pretty. And for some reason, she took this like organic liking to this thing that was kind of new to her. And then before you know it, she's learning more than me. So I'll come home, we'll talk about something, and she'll start having information that I didn't have. And I'm like, oh man, okay, I got her. I got her right where I want her, and then we start getting more games, anyway, I just want to slide.
Yeah. So we lined the walls of our 1-bedroom apartment with the games. I think our max was like 19 before we started moving into that space where we were looking for more space. And really, it's true that the games dictated, our collection dictated what we were going to do next, like where can we move that we can afford to keep them. And from that, the idea of making it a business was born. When we were in New Jersey, we opened up, we lived above, it was kind of a low-key operation. We both had our day jobs. We opened up the arcade on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. And it was all coin operated. It was all quarter drops. A little bit different of a model, which now we have a wristband model, kind of a different look since we moved out to California. But, it first started from where do we put all these games? What do we do with all these games now that we have them? And then it's quickly, it slowly snowballed.
But the arcade in New Jersey, the first high scores, it was out in 2010, right? That's when we first opened it. And Meg, and myself, we're bringing these games in, just the two of us. We still got our early 30s strong bodies. And it's very tough for us, though, because we're bringing these machines from auctions all by ourselves, bringing them to our house. We're connecting with dudes in their 50s and 60s at the time that we were very far away from in age and generation and culture, but they're the ones that knew how to fix the 80s games, right? So we got to get in good with them and figure out who they are. And we start to like them. We start meeting friends, in the arena of arcade game collecting. We start to like them. And we start to become, and the community can get very, very extreme because you're dealing with like competitive high scores. That's one community. Another community is going to be people that like to build games from scratch. And then another community is going to be people who like to collect the games, and others, the people who like to do the work of refurbishing them cosmetically on the inside. And we start building this into our lives, right? So I'm still teaching. She's still, working in pharma. And this first high scores was a special place, man. We had Will Casso is like hip hop graffiti artist of the Trenton area, like of that decade and probably still. And he just tags the whole place up with this like custom arcade art, glow in the dark, all kinds of interesting stuff all over the place. And it was in this 300 and something odd year old building that we bought. And man, building was dirt cheap. It was made out of bricks, and the Quakers used to live there. So like you got a Native American cemetery, indigenous people cemetery in the backyard, right? And, friend of the white man, Chief Okanikin's grave is up there. And so in this setting of this beaten down area on the outskirts of Trenton, New Jersey, which hasn't been healthy since, since the Roebling Steel went out of business, we've got this little tiny arcade with like 35 games in it, and just barely chugging along and working. And people started to come, neighborhood kids started to come. It almost felt like youth outreach. But that first chapter, I don't know, I ever want to understate just how damn cool the New Jersey high scores was. And that served as a springboard for us to collect more games, learn a little bit more about how to fix them. And then before you know it, we get this opportunity to move out west through Meg's career. And, I retired from teaching and we decided we're going to really go for it and like open up a real deal arcade. So that first step was super important to me, and a lot of fun.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of like where you guys were. You started like the idea of having 18 cabinets in a 1-bedroom apartment is like so wild to me. That's a lot of games in that space. And I love how the passion just
table because we wanted the pinball to move the pinball machine in. So
who needs a dining room table?
All the furniture to make room for the games.
You don't need a dining room table. You have a Donkey Kong. You're good. You're set. Exactly. Let's talk about your locations. Obviously, you started in New Jersey. You're in California now. I know we were talking before. You had like multiple locations moving. So you're at like the 5th arcade kind of you've been running.
4th, yeah.
4th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, so when we moved out to the West Coast, we took a 6-month, kind of orientation there, and we opened up High Scores Alameda on Park Street in Alameda. So it's a small island in the East Bay, just across the bridge from San Francisco, where I was working my day job at the time when we opened up. So we've been in the same location there for 10 years. It's about 46, 47 games on the floor, give or take at any one time, depending on the title. We really, we've made such an impact in that community for being there for 10 years. It's super fun because now that we've been there for 10 years, I just met somebody who had been coming to High Scores from the time he was in elementary school, through middle school, through high school, and now in college. So it's really super, super fun that we get to provide that kind of memory that we all have, from being little and playing in the arcade and having it be kind of a special space to us. We get to do that now.
It really feels like we kind of took part in history, in like Bay Area history. And even though we're not from the Bay Area and we'll always kind of be like strangers, it feels kind of like we brought something special that, it was something that was special for us, but also something special for the people around us. So, it was a real fond memory thinking about building that place. And for the first time, doing things like hiring people to help us paint and doing things with more of a professional finishing touch than we did in the New Jersey location. And man, it's been like an iconic place there. And it's been tough for us to keep it running all these years, with the machines are old. So
it's only getting harder.
Yeah, it's only getting harder.
So business model wise, we stick to our, kind of where we focus is classic 80s games. So we have a couple of exceptions, but mostly strongly in the 83 to,
I'd say 80 to 83, 84.
Category of games. We have some newer ones like Guitar Hero and some newer drivers, but kind of in those genres that we feel like only really good ones. Like there's a Pack Battle Royale, the 4-player tabletop. We have that there because it's just immensely popular. So there's a couple of different updated ones that we kind of stray away from the classic model, but never too far that it ruins the ethos of our place.
We have
to protect that.
Yeah, we have a geography in there, so we have categorically, we can only put so many games that are modern in here, and look, we don't have enough from the 90s. We have to make sure we're representing like Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter Third Strike. But, the corny stuff, we just don't let it in. We don't put the corny stuff out there. And like when we get an opportunity, we even have slots where we can put ultra rare stuff. We got stuff that we've collected over the years that nobody's got. Nobody will ever be seen playing it in public. And I say that with respect to the fact there's exceptions like Galloping Ghosts and Fun Spot and some other like top tier locations. But as far as a medium to small size arcade, you'll never see another Swimmer or a Major Havoc or an iRobot. There's
saw that Zookeeper you guys have.
Yeah, there's Atari prototypes that we may never put on the floor, and so that leads us, I think, a little bit just to say that this has been a backdrop though for us being preservationists. So we take whatever we can get, from these locations and raise, and that has enabled us to now build our collection. So entirely, instead of it being 35 in New Jersey, we got 45 or so in Alameda, another 50 at the other 55 at the other location, and then another almost 100 in storage that, it takes a lot to preserve and keep safe and repair. And,
so migrating back to your original question, we have Alameda for 10 years. For 5 of those years overlapping, we had another East Bay location in Hayward, which was amazing, a great run. We still have a lot of really dedicated, loyal customers from the Hayward time that have found their way back to Alameda kind of post-pandemic, but we had to close Hayward during our 15-month COVID closure, and we've just recently, 2-3 months ago, opened up on Alvarado Street in Monterey, California. So we're kind of in a coastal tourist town now with our second location or twin location. And the model is a wristband model. So you pay as you come in, and, you get an hour or an all day pass, and all the games are set to free play. So, functionally wise, all of the coin mechs and everything have been taken out, and they're just all on free play or, rigged one way or another to do that. So right now we've got the 2 locations, and each of them have, somewhere between 45 and 55 games on the floor.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I think taking out the coin mechs is smart. Honestly, they go bad pretty quick, and then you just got to deal with fixing them. It's one less thing to fix, right? You have that many games between the 2 locations. You got 90 some games. It's one less thing to fix. So
people
I
like
think it's
to
a good move.
things in coin. If you're not running off of a quarter model, it's just an extra thing to cause a problem.
Because when you said coin mechs, it made me think of the business decision we made when we took them out and we switched to wristband models. I don't think anybody's going to open up in our backyard. I'm not worried about that. But I just know that one thing that would save anybody interested in this a lot of time is just a philosophical approach to this. You have to make people pay for these damn games. All right. It's not good enough for them to come in and really think it's cool for a minute to take a picture in front of a centipede. If you want to keep this shit alive, you've got to force the idea that these things have value onto people, because they're not going to be, the public in general is not going to be warmed up to that at first. You know what I mean? So you have to kind of bring the dignity back to the arcade. 25 cents, get the fuck out of here, man. These CRT monitors are hundreds of dollars to fix.
Yeah.
And then you gotta sit there and, you know, you gotta make sure all the capacitors are right. And, you know, you plug it in, the whole thing blew. You know, this costs a lot of money. This is tough to do. Make these people pay to be in your spaces. If you could find a way to keep it family friendly like we have, I think that's really important, where anybody could afford to come in. But the idea that it's free seems to be a go-to for an average public person that comes in. And a couple quarters, this used to be 25 cents,
Right.
without the obvious arguments around why we can't do that anymore. So if you want to open a good space where it's worth being there and you're going to be paying some rent, you got to kind of instill the dignity of this into the people, you know?
Well, and I think that that's more than just the games, you know, Shawn and I, you mentioned our custom games, you know, one of the reasons why we do it is to create kind of new excitement in this kind of an old space, you know, and we always have, you know, trademark 80s playlist on the jukebox. We're really strict about what goes on there. Nothing that, you know, came out after, you know, 1990 can even play on the speakers above. So, you know, I think
no exceptions.
You know, you're selling as much as we all recognize the value of the games, the foundation they laid, and we can all love to spend the money. You know, if we had a place like ours that wasn't ours, we would definitely give money to it and go, you know, but there's some people that only have the passing or fleeting memory. And, you know, you do have to kind of create an experience for them that's not just dependent on the games, you know, like, taking me back to my high school days, you know, whatever that experience is, you have to bring them back there or offer a value that's a little bit more than just like, look at all these old games I have.
And what better way to capture that moment for somebody that actually lived through the 80s or early 90s than actually have a space that's literally been almost unadulterated, not mixed, diluted, or tampered with, but that actually reflects what that feeling was in the 80s through the sights and through the games and through the sounds and through the music and through the smell. It's like that one chance, not only for us guys and girls that are older to go back and feel that, but it's for the young people to experience and see what the hell we're talking about. They read the raised on the damn screens and the iPads. They have no idea what we're talking about, or how damn cool it is.
I've literally seen
them, right?
grown men get teary in our arcade before, and then apologize for getting teary. But they're so happy to see it back. And, you know, I think that goes down to like all the little details. Like, you know, your games have to be in really great shape. They have to look good. They have to play well, because the people experiencing it for the first time are going to be judging it as first timers, and the people re-experiencing it that, you know, go for the nostalgia don't want to be reminded of their age. They don't want to be, this is 40 years and broken down and cigarette burns all over the place. And, you know, they want to be taken back to when, like, oh my God, they saw Q*bert in the arcade for the first time, you know? And so part of that is keeping the games, you know, not from being run down, because we've seen there's so many arcades that, you know, you've been in where they might have the huge redemption games and the big fancy moderns, and then they have this sad little corner of classic arcade games,
flat screens
with, like,
shoved into them,
yeah,
right?
some shitty Miss Pac-Man conversion that has like an LCD monitor, and it's depressing, you know.
Again,
and it doesn't
respect Miyamoto,
it doesn't show
right?
the respect that the games should command, just putting it in some down corner, you know.
I mean, nostalgia is a hell of a drug, and when you
Well,
when you nail it, you nail it. Like you just know right away. I'm curious about advice for people that want to open an arcade. Like, you guys are obviously, like, we've all been talking for a little bit, and you're clearly incredibly passionate about this. What advice would you have for somebody that wants to open their own arcade? Like, how do they get into it, I guess, without a lot of the bumps and hurdles in the beginning?
So
what are we talking about? Yeah, like, what kind of arcade?
I'll be a human personification of everybody on the message boards. Run! Don't open your own arcade. That's it. You know, we have talked to a lot of people who come in and wanted to do it through the years, and I would say that the number one biggest challenge is, well, Shawn mentioned, there's so many different groups of people, like, say, specifically in the arcade space, there's high score holders. There's, those passionate, players out there. There's collectors who really love to collect and restore the games and don't really even play them that much, or, and there's operators, which are like seemingly universally hated by the collectors. So it's to jump from one space to another is a little difficult. Like we just
so you can have the games, but run it. Sorry to interrupt,
No,
but
it's
you
okay.
can have the games, but that doesn't mean you can run the business. Because I told you I was a teacher before and a rapper and this, that, but I didn't mention is I was in the barbering industry for 15 years. We had our own hair salon in 2004. And we learned how to run a business. And then you got to respect all those things, like in terms of how to keep inventory, how to interface with the public, what you want your promotional materials to look like. What kind of what's your name supposed to sound like? What's that going to mean? How are you going to represent that in a physical way? A lot of these dudes, they dick around with these machines in their basement. Like, I want to open an arcade, or ladies, mostly dudes. Let's just keep it, as many women in this as there are women in the fire department, right? Like less than 10%. No disrespect. I love women.
We're scrappy.
I love women. But no, you gotta know a thing or two about business. You gotta be willing to take risks. It's gotta be important enough to you, right? Where you can take losses and just be left with some machines, right, that you're saving or keeping. And you got to be willing to take those, and also willing to learn, right? If you're not willing to learn, then you're so far away from step one.
So you can't look at it only from that purest perspective of whatever it is you're passionate about, because if so, you're going to end up with a very weird arcade of, games that like, oh my God, isn't this so cool? This is a Atari prototype that no one's ever played before.
Yeah, fuck your feelings.
You can't have 40 of those. You gotta have a Street Fighter. You don't want it, but you need it, and so like you need to, without sacrificing your principles, like, we don't go for the modern games necessarily because that's not part of like our ethos as a company or collectors, but you have to be willing to say, that subs is so cool, that subs machine, we did a whole unboxing of it brand new, but no one's ever going to play it, or it's not a good mix with the other ones.
She's talking Atari subs from 78. We got one in the box, new, straight from Atari from 78, and we unboxed it. Nobody give a fuck. So we got to learn about that.
No one wanted to play it, but that's the thing, is that you need to be able to look at the business from a multi-dimensional perspective and say, well, it's not just what I think would be cool, or what me and my collector friends think would be cool. What is the 8-year-old that's never seen these games going to play when they walk in?
So if you're one of those weirdos that only plays Robotron and you know about the rainbow board, it's all so cool, we're so hip and we're cool, we all know the same shit, then you got to make sure you flush that attitude out before you start trying to appeal to the public. If you're one of those idiots that only likes Street Fighter 2 or only likes Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or any of that shit, then you're so far away from being able to do a good job. It's not even funny. You got to be able to have a categorical representation of what the public wants, but also what the public needs to be able to connect with history. You got to be able to see that vision and back it up with the actual inventory.
Well, you have to understand that the Atari prototype is awesome to bring in for a small feature, but you have to have, the 5 other games that people are going to play surrounding it. So you have to have a balance,
Yeah, I think you guys gave very similar advice to what Jeremy Fox from Prince Arcade said. He has all these games. He collects all these like super rare games, does a lot of clean outs and stuff. And he's put them on the floor, and he sees some games that he like absolutely loves just don't earn. People just don't want to play them. So you have to be able to curate a mixture of what you actually want on the floor and what people are going to play to keep your balance of the business. You guys are doing obviously like the wristband to get in thing, which helps alleviate that a little bit. You can have more games that you want, but you do still need to have a lot of games that people are going to be happy because they're going to want to spend the whole day, and you need them to come back. Like that's the big thing. They can pay for it for the day, but if they don't come back, that's a little bit of an issue. I want to know.
Classics are good. You have tried and true ones. Those are great. As long as you have half your games are like Pac-Man and Donkey Kong and Street Fighter 2 and Double Dragon and Centipede. As long as you got the tried and true, you're off to a good start. It's what you do with that other 50% of the floor, though,
And the other important thing that cannot be overstated is know how to fix them yourself or have a plan in place, right? So you either have a network or you have that knowledge yourself. And, I stumbled through a lot of things. I rely on, a big network of people that give me like text advice, like, hey, this is presenting this way, what the fuck? And they'll send me back, do this, do this, do this. And so like my phone looks like some weird 1980, like if text messaging like between arcade owners or operators existed in 1984, it'd be my phone.
And why would they do such a thing for you, right? They do that. The reason they would do such a thing for you is the same reason why we answer calls and try to talk strangers through repairs in the back of their monitor, is because it's kind of like a karmic thought that you've got to kind of give out if you really want to have to want to preserve this stuff. And that means sometimes you're not just preserving it for yourself, but you're actually participating in a web with other people, so you can help other people with their preservation efforts, whether it's some guy in his garage or whether you got to pay it forward to them. And I would feel just humiliated by we don't do that here. We're not in the repair business. I would never be able to do that to the person who called me for help, because I know how many times we've had to rely on the help of others that just want to see this thing continue, and so if you feel strongly about the culture continuing and the machines being preserved, then, take part in that web. You know what I mean? See, how can you make yourself useful to that person? What can you add to the cipher there?
Well, pass it on, because honestly, especially with the old games, I mean, they're only getting older, and so are the people that knew how to work on them. So if we don't all talk on that level and perpetuate at least a bit of technical knowledge, and so there's nothing more insulting. So getting back to what does it mean, going into business and being able to do that yourself. I mean, there's nothing more insulting, at least. Well, there's more insulting things, but it's pretty insulting when people come into the arcade and they'll say like, hey, I want to do this. I'm thinking about doing this. I got a space, and like, how do I get these games?
Good luck, Buttercup.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So somebody who's never, so as much as you need to look at it from a business person's perspective and not just the passionate enthusiast, you need that passion to make it work, because if you're just like, I can pick up some of these games, then you're going to get it wrong. You just don't get it. You're going to get it wrong,
Yeah, I mean, the way that I've heard a lot of arcade owners talk about it is you get in it for the passion, and you get in it so you're not paying for storage. Like
Yes.
you're making money on these games, and you're not paying for storage. You're getting a profit out of them. I was looking at your guys' Instagram, and I'm really curious about these Nintendo cabinets. Like, tell me more about the custom cabinets you have in there, the Nintendo cabinets. Like, that Smash Bros. Melee cabinet is sick. How did that come to be?
Sean's noggin.
Cannabis. No, I just, no, man, it's just you sit and you have these visions about what if we could do this, right? And a lot of those visions never met their end or their fruition. But with these, man, it was like, we thought about it. Some of the ideas I'd come up with, or Meg too. But once the idea was out there, it was a group of us, starting with me and Meg, that had to work on the development of these cabinets, and then we had to spread it out to other people and have their talents come into play so we could actually get them completed. So we starts with the idea, sketch, right, and then after that, it's about finding the talent that can help us, make our vision a reality. And in this case, with a lot of those, Sam Bauman had a lot to do with that. He's a fantastic artist. I mean, in terms of what our ideas were, it's not like he executed them. It's like he tweaked, reinvented, and he kept all the great stuff, but then added his own great stuff, and then got rid of some of the stuff that wasn't going to work. So
they say our Oregon Trail machine plays a bunch of text-based games. So
and that's custom, man. Like King's Quest,
Apple II games,
Leisure Suit Larry. This is just so important. Like, you go up to this arcade machine, it's made out of wood. It looks like it's made out of a damn Oregon wheel, or it's got custom art, and then inside is a monitor. You got an old IBM QWERTY clicky keyboard that you walk up to as if it was Computer Lab in the 80s, right? And then you could play Leisure Suit Larry. Anybody who knows video games outside of the arcade, they had a PC in the 80s. Sierra Online, man, and we're talking like, later on they did cool stuff like Quest for Glory, but I'm talking about the foundational stuff like Space Quest. You play that in the middle of an arcade. That's just so cool. So
what we did was, thought like, that would be cool. Can we still get the keyboards? What would the inside look like, and how would it work? And then we presented the idea to Sam, to the artist, who took it one step further, and he partnered with somebody to do all kind of parchment paper, hand-drawn art, and textured the wood. And he even drove it here on the Oregon Trail and took some pictures of it, glamour shots along the way. So, in part, it's just like geeky ideas, that come up, and then we make them a reality. But what they turn to be is, people that literally will buy a wristband just to play Smash or just to play Oregon Trail. Or they see it and then they go, oh yeah, no, it's like it awakens, their junior high self.
Man, like a third of the people, or maybe not that much, but maybe like a fifth of the people that walk up to Oregon Trail say they remember seeing it in the arcade. It's just never existed, but they think that it was in the arcade. Smash Brothers was for the babies, Wu-Tang is for the children. That Smash Bros and all that shit, I was already, in my 20s, that wasn't something that our kids play it, but that was less about, honoring or preserving arcade. It was more like reaching out to like the younger gamers whose nostalgia actually is only tracing back to the early 2000s. You know what I mean? So we try to get it right for them, because they didn't have people that grew up and were teenagers in the 2000s did have arcade machines, but not like we did. There wasn't some massive collection of all these, limitless genres and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of something.
So the Smash Bros cabinet is super sexy and looks beautiful. But it's running off of original GameCube hardware. It has the world's heaviest CRT monitor inside, just to make sure that the frame rate and the lag and everything was all the way that people should compete on it, so
and Zelda's golden, like shiny, shimmery golden. It kind of looks like that dude that used for Nintendo with 3DS. It was golden, like Zelda's just so pretty, man. And Sam had a lot to do with that too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you guys definitely got me with that. I'm one of those babies that like I wish I had arcades when I was like a teenager, but GameCube is like my nostalgia, and now I've collected. I think I've picked up like 40 games in the last month and a half because I'm like
tough to collect for, man. That's a very expensive console.
I just picked up Chibi Robo and Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, and those were really hard to find. But I'm glad I got them. I've got a couple more on my list.
Darkness? You got Eternal Darkness?
Nope, it's on my list.
Really?
I'm grabbing it as soon as I see it.
Like you can tell, like we're still modern gamers in the sense that we keep up with the times. We're not stuck back in Dig Dug land. You know what I mean? But yeah, I love the GameCube too.
But we also, we've done really silly things like we put a Dreamcast inside a candy cow.
We made a Shenmue machine.
Oh, that'd be sick.
Cabinet just dedicated completely, and it's all because we wanted to be able to walk into
the arcade. In
an arcade. so like we made a custom Shenmue marquee for it, like the control panel art, everything. And that I wouldn't say that was a marketing winner, but boy, it's fun, So
yeah, I love all your guys' like unique, interesting stuff, and it makes me wonder what you think about the indie arcade scene. Like, there's this resurgence of new developers creating games, including myself, for like the arcade specifically. Like, we don't develop for Steam, we don't do that. We just are developing for the arcade. What do you think about these games? And I hear you have an idea, so tell me a little bit more about that.
You're hired. I just, we kind of like, to get me programming like C++ or like QBasic or something like that, I'm of the age where I haven't kept up. I've not been studious with programming, and I've tried to. I'm one of those people, when I make beats, I still use an SP1200. I don't use the free software. You know what I mean? So my thing is that neither one of us are really capable of programming it, right? But we have a developed, ironed out idea. And we've been keeping an eye on the indie scene, like you talk about. I don't know if we've been looking in the same places, but we watch, different indie developers that do things like for the Commodore 64, where you can download the files or purchase.
But for the arcade, I think that maybe the guys that did Killer Queen are maybe the ones that kind of, in part, are responsible for seeing that, kind of kicking over that rock and seeing that there was some potential there, and then you started to go. To say out here we have PAX,
California Extreme.
And so then eventually started to see the people building like the new Pong tables and some new old equipment almost. And so I think that it's exciting it's exciting that anybody cares about that venue, right? Because we all know that it's fun to play shoulder to shoulder, be able to shit talk in real time, but I think it is aspirational, in some ways, because, it depends on people leaving their houses, which, people aren't a fan of.
And you need to be successful. Like those folks building those games and want to put them in arcades, you got to do it where you're going to, at the end of the day, you're going to be successful with your project. Like people are going to find out about it. You can find a way to finally connect those dots between somebody walking into the arcade and playing it, and also having a version of it available for them to dick around with their phone and all that. You need to be successful. It's got to be a hit. People got to find out about it. It's got to be like a demand for the machines, because I know a lot of the personalities that I've seen in that realm, they're satisfied with just getting the shit out there. And then, a couple people know about it and they geek out, but like, you got to be successful with these projects. This has got to be something that's in demand, where if I haven't heard about it, but I find out it's available, just in our situation, we got to buy one, right? As soon as it comes out, we have to buy that. It makes no sense. A new arcade game in 2025 or 2024.
It plays this well. And
it plays this well that people love. We got to get it,
Yeah.
So it's got to kind of reach that level. And the reason I say that is because I want to see it go that direction, because pushing arcade culture forward, no matter from what angle it is, our angle, others, the Japanese, your angle, the India developers, I think that all of it is positive. Anything that's making the arcade a place to go.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, if one side of it rises, everybody rises, right?
Absolutely.
And let's talk about guests at your arcade. Like, I've seen a bunch of people on your guys' Instagram, like some pretty cool guests. I think I saw like Jason Kidd, Billy Mitchell. I know you guys know Walter Day and stuff like that. So let's talk about who you've had at your arcade and who are some of the coolest guests that you think you guys have had.
The arcade community, and I'm going to let Meg answer this one because she has a better memory of the early days, because she was kind of the first person to speak to people. But I'm telling you, man, the arcade community, at the time that we got engaged, when you open up an arcade, no matter how small it is, it's kind of like you hear about like the Masons or some kind of group where you have to do all this work and then finally you get the secrets. When you open it up in an arcade, you get all the secrets right away. You find out everybody's phone number, everybody's willing to come and set a score on your machine. They're so welcoming. All those guys, maybe not all the guys, but almost all those people immediately gave us access to their events, to what was going on, included us in on their circle. They, I think, feel like a lot of them, like we do, where any push forward is a positive one. So the reason why we got all those guests early on is because of that attitude. And Billy Mitchell was somebody we met at Richie Knuckles Arcade. Fabulous. He's a fabulous arcade. He repairs and restores them at a level that I don't see anywhere else.
Richie Knuckles in New Jersey, and actually he just opened a new one. But he's responsible for introducing us in the early days to Billy and
the mid 2000s. Yeah,
but it was before we had an arcade. It was more than we're just collectors at the time. But when we opened up, we in Jersey we had a competition, and it was hosted by Mark Alpiger, who is in King of Kong as the guy that wears the weightlifting glove, right? So he's hosted a couple of hey, this is our son Link.
Link Adiel.
Link, say hi.
Hi.
So we've had some pretty cool people. We've had Lonnie McDonald, who refers to himself as the Joust Master. Oops, I'm sorry. I'll go back to that. This is Journey.
Journey Adiah.
Journey?
Hi.
Hi. So yeah, Lonnie McDonald, he goes by the name the Joust Master. He goes to every publicly available joust machine, and he catalogs the serial numbers of the cabinets that he plays, and he rolls all of them over where he plays to 99999 and rolls the score over. And so he's been at it for a long time. Actually, our joust cabinet in New Jersey was his, I think, first commercial stop or second commercial stop way back when.
Maybe like 2012 or something.
Yeah, and then he's come and played our game in Alameda, and then when we had our location in Hayward with Joust, he came and rolled that game over as well. We've had David Cruz, who was the longtime Tron world record holder. He came and set a score on our machine.
Taught us a thing or two. Meg learned Robert Mirczek.
He taught me how to play Star Wars, and that was pretty rad. And Donald Hayes, who's another like all-time, man has so many world records. He's an all-time, high score holder, and he's come out and played.
Yeah, we've hosted a lot of these competitions with Mark Alpager. So if you watch King of Kong or some of the various documentaries that came out in the last 15 years, Mark Alpager ran ClassicArcadeGaming.com. And so we partnered with him many times to hold these competitions. And as a result, we ended up getting the opportunity to meet, watch, kind of hang out with a lot of those high score holders over the years. And that's all. It's awesome. It's not really part of our business. It's kind of something that actually disrupts business a little bit, but it's worth it. But it's worth it for the experience. We do it because we love it.
But on the dev side, I mean, that's on the player side. But on the other side, we are lucky, fortunate to be, somewhat close to Silicon Valley. So we've had a lot of people come in that had a direct hand in, Atari's early days. A lot of the guys who used to work in Sunnyvale have popped in. So we've had people, across that video game, kind of that industry spectrum come in. And sometimes, like Owen Rubin, he lives up in in Oakland, and he designed Major Havoc, and
he made the explosions on Battlezone too.
Yeah, so he's come in a number of times to play, and so it's just so for me, I really geek out in meeting some of those people that had a really such a heavy hand in creating some of our favorite games. It's pretty cool to be able to meet them face to face.
Yeah, I don't even know how you could pick a coolest at that point in time. I mean, you guys have had so many. I mean, it's hard to not say legends in the space. Join you and like play games and teach you how to play games. And like Billy Mitchell taught me how to play Pac-Man. I'm still absolutely garbage at it, but it was really cool to play.
Too?
Yeah, he came and played. He played Galactic Battleground with us like 4 or 5 years ago. We actually took it to California Extreme in 2017. I think we were showing it off there.
It's funny. He's a pretty nice guy. Like when you see all the publicity and all the stuff that gets covered, but at least I don't know. Look, I haven't looked into any of the cheat or any of that stuff. But all I know is in person, he's been a really nice guy.
That's all I can say about him too. I've met him like 4 or 5 times now. He's been incredibly kind every single time I've met him. And obviously, he's got his character, but
he's a class act around people,
So the fellow that has our high score, one of our high scores on Donkey Kong, just asked me like, "What do you think about Billy Mitchell?" And it's always like a loaded question, right? Like no one ever, But to me, just as he said, he's always been kind, and I don't care who you are. He's a good player. He's an amazing player.
Yeah, see, I don't watch that close enough to pay attention to what's going on with the MAME and all that stuff.
I don't know. Did you use an 8-way joystick or did you? I don't know. But at the end of the day, with my own eyes, dude can play the shit out of those games, and that's what I know for sure.
It's just such a weird question. It's like you're gonna ask me what my house is worth, and like, did I get vaccinated? And should you call me Shim? Like, I don't know. It's just a strange question, and we get it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I was with him in Fort Lauderdale, and he walked up to the machine, and he was like, "I'm gonna play to this score." He played to it, did not die a single time, and then when he just walked away, like he just knew what he was gonna play to. He hit it first try, and that was that.
Yeah. So I think a lot of the people that ask me those questions, this one aside, but a lot of the people that ask me that question are, they're dying on the third board, so I think, it's funny. That's why it's funny to me. It's like, I don't know. He's pretty freaking good at those games.
Right. Well, that's really all the questions I had for you guys. I want you to shout out social medias. I want people to be able to follow along your journey, visit your arcade. So where can they find you?
So on Instagram, we're High Scores Arcade. On Facebook, we're High Scores Arcade. Twitter or X is HS Arcade. We're a little less active on there. We just can't do TikTok. I'm sorry. We just can't.
No, we're not going to step into that world,
So there is,
I think we have a TikTok.
I think there's a presence there, but it's certainly not updated unless it's by somebody else. So, but mainly Instagram and Facebook at High Scores Arcade.
Yeah, and YouTube has a lot of good content.
Yeah, YouTube.
Meg does she does guidance videos for various classic games, and how to play and beginner tips.
Yeah, so on YouTube, it's High Scores Arcade as well.
Awesome. I'm going to throw all those links down in the description so you guys can go check them out. Meg, Shawn, I want to say thank you for coming on. I appreciate chatting with you. It's been a blast. You guys are clearly insanely passionate, and you've got multiple arcades, pushing the arcades forward, keeping that nostalgia, really hitting that niche. Like I said, nostalgia is a hell of a drug, and you guys are clearly delivering on that. If you guys like what we're doing here at Indie Arcade Wave, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps us a ton. We can all ride the wave together. And until next time, peace.
Peace.